Well, hi everyone, and welcome back to Photoshop User TV. We are brought to you by KelbyOne, ta-da, who also bring you Photoshop User Magazine. Brand new issue, has the cover story. We'll be talking about that a little bit later. But here we are, it's back. It's a new year. Where you been, Pete?
I've been here, there, and everywhere, having a good time. Great time for a break. The holidays were here, but now we're back, ready to roll. I'm Pete Collins, one of the Photoshop guys, and you are Corey Barker.
I am. We want to welcome everyone back.
We do. And I tell you what we're going to do. We're going to jump right into a tutorial, and Corey is going to start us off with something phenomenal.
Absolutely. So we're going to jump right into it, of course, because this is why we're watching the show, aren't we? So actually, I want to talk about some of the new features that have just showed up in the recent Photoshop update. The CC, they just released a new update with a handful of new features, all the way from some simple JDIs through some 3D improvements with 3D printing. Now, we're not going to talk about 3D printing in this show, but trust me, we're working on it. But just to show you, highlight some of the more popular features that have been added, one of the great things is that they've really improved upon the pattern fills. So if I have a blank document here, I'm just going to go ahead and make a new layer. And let's just do a simple fill. It's just press Shift-Delete or Shift-Backspace if you're on Windows. And you go into the contents and you go down here and choose Pattern. Now, you can, of course, use any defined pattern you have in the menu here. I've just got a collection of the default patterns or any ones you define on your own. But if you go down here where it says Scripted, you can actually do things like a tree. This intrigued me the very first time I saw this. If I go over here and select this and hit OK, you're going to get another menu that allows you to go in here and choose from a whole different library, a whole bunch of libraries of trees. Maybe you want an elm tree. Maybe you want to add custom colors. Maybe you want it to look more realistic or something like that. So you just go in here and you can change all these different attributes about these trees, and then once you hit OK, it's going to think about it. And it's going to ask you questions about your family.
It's going to ask if a tree is filled in the forest and nobody's there to see it.
It's going to wonder if Photoshop renders a tree, will it make a sound? We're going to wait and find out. Still taking a minute. All right. Actually, I actually run that and I'll have it come back on the break, but I just wanted to cancel and show you that. What I do want to show you is another aspect of this. Something that I think is very, very cool. Let's say that I create a path. Go on, say it.
Hey, say you create a path.
Say I created a path. And I want to apply something along that path, name maybe an image. Well, I'll go in here and select Pattern once again, go down here and choose Place Along Path. And then you go ahead and just choose whatever pattern. Now let's use one of these default ones here. And then click OK. And look at that. You can now have it traveling along the path, and you can change a whole bunch of different attributes about it. You can change the spacing, the scale of the pattern, if you want it to be really big. Actually, I don't want the color randomness to be going on there, so we'll keep that. Bring the spacing down so it just creates this kind of image path here. And you can just play with all these settings, a lot of experimentation that you can play with, and then click OK, and then you get the image traveling along a path. I've clearly made it way too large. But the cool thing is this. Not only when you do a pattern will it stay along the path. So if I just do this, let's say I wanted to make a tree, but maybe bend it along a path here. So as long as the path is selected, this is really cool. And watch it not work this time. But if I go and choose tree again, and click OK, it's going to ask me what kind. I'm actually going to choose a palm tree right down here, 22. And I'm going to keep all the settings as they were, and we're just going to see what this does in just a moment. See, it's going to be a little bit quicker because it's a smaller tree. Not quite as full as that oak one. Now, I was a little disappointed because when I saw these, they're actually not 3D. They look 3D in the preview window.
They do.
You would assume that when they bring it in, that it would go ahead of it and have it a 3D object. Now, there's an idea for Adobe. If they had a library of 3D trees that you could bring back in the 3D layer, it would be awesome. But it's still rendering. So what do we talk about?
How's your book going?
Books? Oh, I can actually mention that while this is rendering. Just over the break, we had our little hiatus here, finished the Down and Dirty Tricks Volume 2 for designers. Very excited. It's going to be coming out probably in about a month's time, so be on the lookout for that, but very excited. It's finally done and at the publisher, and we're almost there.
Unlike, oh, there it is.
There it is. So.
Oh, so it doesn't, I was expecting a bunch of trees to
Yeah, you almost
come
expect
around.
it to create this pattern fill, but actually if it detects a path, it's going to assign it along that path. So you can actually bend these along the path before it's even applied on there. So pretty cool.
If you were going to do it another way, you would have to come in, put that tree in there, and then puppet warp it to get it
precisely,
to do that.
Which is certainly another way to do it, but it just, it gives you that, that ease. Now, there's other pattern fill features, but here's another one I really wanted to show you. And this is one of the more bigger, more impressive features. But as simple as it is, it actually is a very simple tool. I mean, so as far as the simplicity of this example, it's the new perspective warp. Now, let's say I wanted to change the perspective of these books. Well, obviously they were shot at a specific angle, and we pretty much have to live with that. Well, in the past, that would be the case. But if we go to Edit, Perspective Warp, and what it's going to tell you to do is draw a grid over an area of the image. So I'm going to make a grid over here on this side, and then just distort this so it conforms to the edge of that book there. Then I'm going to go out to the outside of it here and draw another one. Now when you bring the control handler close to it, you see the corners get highlighted, and it's going to snap to the edge there and go ahead and adopt that perspective. So I'm actually going to include the rest of the book in the grid here. And once you have that grid drawn, go ahead and click on Warp here, and then now you can go over here and change the perspective of the books depending on what angle you want it to look at it. It actually distorts it really well and re-renders it. So if I wanted the books to be more pages than spine, then I can make it look like this. They have nice wide pages. And just press Enter, and it goes ahead and creates that distortion. So it's really, you can do it with multiple planes. I just did it with 2, but if you've got an image that's like looking down a hall, you want to change the perspective of a multi-sided building, it certainly is a lot of very advantage to that.
That's going to be great for graphic designers. When you've got a stock image that you really want to use, but it's just slightly off, that'll really save you.
Absolutely. All right, so let's do this. Excuse me. I got so excited. Let's take a quick break. We're going to come back. We're going to have a few things to talk about. Pete's got some stuff for us, so stay with us. We will be right here.
I really believe that your photography is a reflection of who you are. In my posing class, you're going to learn a lot of things. How to pose a bride and bring out the best in her shape and her curves. How to photograph a groom, because many of us who may focus on the bride will ignore the groom. Getting your clients to mirror you. Mirroring, I find, is the best way of getting people to pose. I'm Jerry Gionis. Check out my class on the fine art of posing at KelbyTraining.com.
Hi everyone, we are back to Photoshop User TV. Now at the beginning of the show, you remember we mentioned and showed you the magazine showing the new KelbyOne branding. Now, if you're a KelbyOne member, don't forget to enjoy all the perks of your membership. We've worked out some killer member-only discounts. Just log into your account and start saving on all the gear, gadgets, and software you are looking for. It's at KelbyOne.com. Now, with that, we're going to continue on with the Photoshop awesomeness with Mr. Pete Collins. He's got something already cool. What do you got?
All right, well, one of the things that helps me when I'm trying to work on a project or whatever is I go look at some other great designs that people have, and then I try to figure out how I can create them myself. And I don't want to make an exact copy, but I want to figure out what I can do to have mine look like that, kind of give me an inspiration for it. And so here's just an image that is for an iPad or an iPhone or something like that, and I really like the background to it and the shelves. And as a matter of fact, on another episode, I'm going to show you how to make those shelves very quickly and easily. But right now, I just was thinking about creating some backgrounds that I could use on different things. So I then thought, well, one of the ways I could do it is I could go over and find some stock images that look very similar to that and use those as a background. But there's also another way. And I've done something similar in the past, but I just wanted to revisit it and show you some other things. And I'm going to create just a blank document, a new document, and I'm going to make it 3 by 3 inches. But what's going to make it even easier is if I change it to pixels, and I'm going to change both of those to pixels. And then, okay, so this is 900 by 900 pixels. And what's really going to help me on this, I'm going to create my own pattern that I can use over and over again. And it's going to be able to give me a neat look that I can play with and do different stuff too. So what I'm going to do is I want to find the center point. Because I've already pulled up my rulers, Command or Control R will bring them up. And I've got on View, I've come down here and hit Snap and turn that on. If you want to make sure what you've got it set to, guides, layers, document bounds. But so now I can come and I just simply pull out a guide. And because I know it's 900 all the way across, or 3 inches because I've got it set for 300 DPI, 450 should be the midpoint. Now the good news is because I've got snap set on, you might not be able to see it, but as I drag by the 450, it hangs up just a little bit right there and will lock into 450 so that I know I'm dead center. Now if I want to do one of my guides down from vertical, I just pull from up top and I go down, and the same thing, around 450, it kind of snags. Now I know that is the dead center point for this work right here. I'm going to create a new blank layer by hitting my icon, and now I'm just going to go over and grab my elliptical shape tool. Now that I know the dead center of this, I'm just going to put my cursor right in the middle, and because snap is on, it's going to want to grab that. Now here's the thing, whenever you try to start pulling out your circle like this, it's wanting to go to the corner, whichever direction you pull. However, if I hold down my Alt or Option button, it constrains from the center. And that's great because now I can make sure it's dead center too. But if I hold my Shift, it's now going to constrain that circle to be perfectly circular. A circle being perfectly circular is pretty cool. So now I know that my circle is perfectly smooth all the way around. I'm going to get it to about midway in the whole frame, and then I'm going to release. Now I've got an option of playing with my properties bar over here, but I'm just going to simply change the fill to black. All right? So now I've got that going for me. I'm going to come hit my elliptical tool again, my circular shape tool, and I'm going to do it one more time, holding Alt or Option and Shift, and I'm just going to make this a little smaller. It doesn't really show up too much right now, but if I take and change my fill to something like white, now I've created a nice little donut type of situation here. However, because it's a shape, I really want to mess with this as if it's one solid donut instead of two things laying on top of each other. So there are lots of ways to do this, but I'm kind of old school, so I'm just going to change this. I'm going to rasterize that layer, and I'm going to rasterize that layer. So now they're not shapes, they're just pixels. I come over, hold my Command or Control, and it loads up the selection of that white layer there. I can get rid of it, and you can see the selection going on right there. I highlight the bottom one, and I'm just going to hit Delete. And it cuts out that section right in the middle. If I get rid of my background layer, you can see now I have a donut. And that's really where I wanted to start. I can get rid of that elliptical first layer. Now I've got those two layers there. I'm going to make one copy of it. And now this is the filter that a lot of people don't play with, but it's so handy. If I come down here to Other and go to Offset, I've now, of course, I've already got the settings in there. So normally what will happen is you've got it set like that when you first come in. Well, because I know the midway point of this is 450 pixels, I can come in and type 450. And what it's going to do is going to move each way to the side 450 pixels and repeat that image. If I do the vertical 450 and then hit OK, you see how it spread those out to the corners. And now I've got a representation of that circle in each one of these four corners. Well, I'm simply now going to create a pattern from that by going to Edit, Define Pattern, and then hit OK. I'm done with that right there. I've got a repeating pattern that I'm going to be able to apply to anything I want. So I come over, I create a new, go to Paper, sure, 300 pixels, that looks good. And now I'm going to create a new blank layer. And I usually just, what I do is I tend to take this and just fill it with gray. And then I take and just drop the fill. Because what's going to happen is fill is going to hide all the original layer, but it's going to still show what's going on with my layer styles. And now I come over to Pattern Overlay, and this is why I like to do it this way. As soon as I click on that pattern, you see it's filled it with the pattern I just made. But the great thing is, because it's on layer style, I can now tweak the size and scale of it. I can scale it up and down according to what I want to do. I could even, it's not really going to matter here, but I can move it around and line it up however I want. Once I get it to that point right there, I say OK, and I've got the pattern how I want. However, I may want to play with it even a little more, so here's a little trick. You can do a couple things, but I just come in and create a new blank layer, and I take this and I just merge those two together. You see what I did? Let me go back. I've got a new blank layer. I highlight the layer with the pattern overlay, and I highlight that new blank layer, and I hit Command or Control E to merge those two together. And what it did is it basically took and smushed those together, and now I have just that one layer with the pattern on it. Why would I want to do that? Well, now I can simply come in, make a copy, Command or Control J, and I may want to do something like invert that. And now instead of black circles with a white background, I've got white circles with a black background. And so now I've got a lot more creativity that I can play with those patterns. And now I've got both sides of it that I can start to work with. And it all started with me just understanding how to make a repeating pattern that I can do without ever having to go and buy any stock imagery or whatever. This is a great base for then maybe putting some drop shadows and other things in here to really play with it to give you a unique background that you've made yourself. And so that's kind of where I've started with this. And then in the next show, I'm going to talk about how to build the shelves that you can add to stuff like this. And it should be pretty fun.
Of course, the great thing there is that those patterns are saved in Photoshop.
Right.
So you don't have to go and remake them every time you want to use that pattern. It's saved and they're available anytime.
Yep.
All right. So moving along to wrap up the show, we've got a great Peach Pit book deal giveaway right here. You can see it is, where is it? Lindsay Adler's Creative 52 book. This is a really cool book.
Yeah, if you don't know who Lindsay Adler is, she's a great fashion photographer. She's done some classes for us over here on KelbyOne. We love her. We've had her on the grid and stuff. And this one's all about getting creative and having projects and sort of having guides and ideas for what you're going to do with your projects. We talk about 365 projects and stuff like that, and it's just sort of, oh, I got to do something. Yeah. This is really honing your creativity so that you can really hash out and really develop your own style and your own look. And it's a great book. I would highly recommend it. And it's 40% off on our Peach Pit deal. On
the ebook deal, of course, you go to the site, peachpit.com, and look for it. You can use the discount code KelbyOne. Get that 40% off. All right.
Make sure to go to peachpit.com/KelbyOne to find that page and find out the deal of the month.
All right. So, in usual form, we also have a giveaway right here. This week we have Scott's Adobe Photoshop for digital photographers, versions CS6 and CC, the bestseller right here. All yours. All you have to do is go to KelbyOne right here. I've got it up. There it is, KelbyOne.com/contest. And just go right in here, select the show, which is PhotoshopUserTV, enter your name, email, any comments, questions you have about the show or anything like that, and that basically throws your name in the drawing for that very cool book.
Yep, it's a great book.
All right, so that does wrap it up for this week's episode. We're glad to have you guys back and hope to see you on KelbyOne and around everywhere else that we see it. So join us here next week here on Photoshop User TV. My thanks to Mr. Pete Collins.
It's good to be here. Good to be back.
It's fun, isn't it?
Yeah.
Let's do it again. All right. I'm Corey Barker. We'll see you guys next time.
Okay.
Bye-bye.